Thank you, Eyal, for the interesting and exciting presentation. Because it's so new and exciting, and only from the last few weeks, there isn't a paper yet, and I also just received the slides yesterday while I was here. So this you will hear here, and some of the slides I only saw now. So you will hear here just my thoughts and also improvisations. And also, I'm not an economist, so you will receive a legal or a policy perspective. I found the presentation very interesting, first of all, because it's optimistic. Because when we're thinking about pension and retirement in Israel, we can't be very optimistic because we have the life expectancy that we're supposed to live more, and we have the pension system, the move from the budgetary pension and the defined benefits to the defined contribution. We know that we won't receive a lot of the amounts of the replacement rate will be maybe right. I think of Spivak has speculations about what will be the replacement rates in the new pension funds, right? 30%, something like that. So we don't have a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and then we might be more optimistic if at least we will have a chance to work more if we would want an old age. So that is one thing I liked very much about the presentation. The other thing that is that I think the research is very important is that the years that were checked by Eyal was 2001 and 2010. And during these years, there were a lot of reforms in the Israeli pension system and in retirement age. Now, when we're speaking about retirement age, I thought that maybe it's a comment that is important to make in this workshop. Actually, in 2004, there were a few changes in retirement age. If I will take One rise in the retirement age, which we already spoke about in this workshop, was the rise in the eligibility age to Social Security benefits, which was for women it's from the age of around 60 to 64, and for men from 65 to 67. That's the Social Security. That's the Social Security age. The age of eligibility to Social Security benefits, but there were also the Retirement Age Act from 2004 made two other raised also the mandatory retirement age, which also we talked about a bit at this workshop. Now, before 2004, there wasn't a mandatory retirement age by law in Israel, but there was a mandatory retirement age in collective agreements, which was usually not 67, it was 60 or 65. So also the mandatory retirement age was raised, and there was also the act from 2004 also raised what they called an early retirement age, which was raised to the age of 60. So there were a lot of changes in the retirement in the legal regulation of retirement, and above that there were also a lot of reforms in the pension system in Israel. Now, the Eyal's work is very important because we might learn from it that that the labor market participation of elderly raised. I mean, so it's okay if we raise the at least the eligibility to Social Security benefits, because workers can work more. Because when we're looking about labor market participation, like the slide I showed yesterday, we see that elderly people work much lesser than younger people. And we see this decrease over the years, but we don't know why do they work less. Is it because they don't want to work less, because they are already eligible to Social Security benefits, or do they work less because they do not find work? So from Eyal's presentation, we can assume that maybe they don't work, they didn't work, they don't work a lot because they do not want to work a lot. But after saying that, I must say that if we really want to learn something from the research, we maybe want to get more details. One thing we maybe want to get is to look on specific years to see, because also all of these processes, all of the Retirement Age Act from 2004 does not really say that the age will raise to 64 or 67. There is a really some kind of a gradual process, which every year or the retirement age raises a bit. So we should be maybe more specific. I understood that there is right now. I understood that there is some kind of a research in that the Bank of Israel is doing in that prospect. Another thing that I think could be very interesting is to look at the amount of earnings, because each one of these retirement age reflects a different kind of a population. While the Social Security benefits are very relevant to the lower earning population, the mandatory retirement age and also the early retirement are more relevant to the middle class or to the higher incomes. And after saying that, I think that even if I am convinced, and I think I am convinced a bit by I am convinced by your research that people or senior workers can work more. When I listened to your presentation, I thought about Jenny's comment yesterday about people do workers if senior wants to work, right? Jenny commented that many seniors do not want to work. We can say, okay, well, it's not something we're taking into account, but it's something that we should be aware of. More of that, of course, we don't learn anything about the quality of work. I mean, do we really want to force everybody to work in every kind of work, in all kinds of work, and what income? And one thing that I was thinking about is we saw that the immigrants work much more, and immigrants who come to Israel a lot. There is a work of Adi Brender from Bank of Israel about who does not have, who has and who does not have pensions in Israel. So immigrants are one of the populations that does not have the occupational pension savings. So they work because they have to work, probably. So maybe it's good. Maybe that's what we want, but we should be aware of what we are doing. Thank you very much, Eyal.
Well, I think your work is very interesting. I have one basic question, and it relates a little bit to what Lilach was talking about. You were looking at what happened to the income by age, and I think it would be interesting to look at the breakdown of income by wage and hours worked and actual work. And I think that the breakdown would be relevant because I think there are different factors that affect the different elements of income. And for example, the issue of whether people continue working or not is very much related to changes in the retirement age and other policies, where the wage over time is more related to the personal attributes. So I think when you look at income as a whole, it's sort of you can't really analyze the relevance of changes in policies, and I think it will enrich your analysis.
Continuing somewhat in the same line, one of the things that came out as a part of the social protest was that real wages, on average, did not increase in the last decade. And this is the decade that Eyal is talking about. On the other hand, Karnit showed that the income of households increased at that period. And the reason was they had the same wage, but they worked more. I think especially the women. And so this is something that has to be taken into account in this. And the other point that I just wanted to correct for our guests, the mandatory retirement, there are mandatory retirement age where somebody must retire. And this age is 67, right? This age is 67 for both men and women. Now, the age at which they may retire and start to get a pension for male is now 67, but for females it was supposed to go up to 64, but then it was blocked by the parliament action, and it stayed at 62. So there's a large gap now between the female retirement age and the male retirement age.
Can I just say something? The retirement age of 60. It's actually, it will be 64. The reason I wrote 64 because it will be 64 if a committee, which is supposed to give her recommendation until 2016, if the committee will not decide otherwise, it will be raised to 64 and will be 64 if nothing else will happen. And the retirement, the age that people are eligible to pensions from occupational pension in the new pension funds or the new pension arrangement, it's the age of 60. It's the same for men and women. The differences between men and women are relevant to the old pension programs and to Social Security, of course, yes, and of course to Social Security. About it.
Thank you. First of all, really, and I thought it was an excellent presentation, and the analysis of the data is really exciting. One question that I had is, how do you define households? We know that 1/3 of the elderly live with others. So, like a third live with alone, a third live with a spouse, and a third live with others. So how did you? That's just to understand it. And secondly, I really think that Israel has a very, according to also to the data you show, we really have like 20 years of a window of opportunity to deal with the aging of the population. First of all, because you didn't show the data even before, but if you had taken, not 2001, you had taken let's say 1990, we will see much major changes, because the increase in labor participation among the older segments really increased. So it's even more if we take a longer period of time, and also there was a continuous decrease since the 70s in Israel, continuously decrease for the 55 and 64 among men, and suddenly since 2003, 2004, we see for the first time again a rise. So it's I think if you take even a longer run, you will be even more optimistic. So once we see that, the other thing that we see is really elderly people being more educated, and so we have this like 20 years, because I am concerned, as you are, about the younger generations, and I think that for the next two decades, I think that there will be some release for Social Security transfer payments, for income supplement, I mean. But then I think that if we don't take care of in the third decade, we will see a rise again. So I really think that in policy thinking, this is really a window of opportunity. Also, the new cohort of elderly entering is of young people in the next 10 years, and then we will see aging of that group. So I think it's, for the Israeli government, this is really an opportunity to take appropriate measures.
Can I just ask one little compliment on the household? I was also surprised actually about the small, the small size of the households, not knowing the situation well here. So I was also wondering how you define the households. And then secondly, you have per capita income. Is it standardized per capita income, or is it just divided by 2, let's say if there are 2 people?
Okay, so let me just add to, I agree with what Lilach was saying, and in fact, perhaps some of my results could have been a consequence of the fact that people were expecting to retire, but because of the change of the mandatory retirement or the change in the eligibility for Social Security, they had to keep working. So, as I said in my final comments, it's still far-reaching to say that we know that the situation of the elderly is better than before. It's going to be better than before. We have to be careful about that. But I'm sure that there'll be more opportunities to look deeper into this, to look at the specific age groups, specific population subgroups, and to see before and after the change in retirement age what happens to their employment and income. There's plenty more things to do about that. About Karnit's suggestion to separate wage and work hours, we're definitely going to do that. But one thing that actually I thought about while you were speaking is the fact that perhaps we should look at workers who change work, because not only you're eligible to continue working in your previous employment place after age 65, but perhaps what happens, you retire and then you find another job, and then you may be able to work for a totally different wage, maybe even much lower. But if you are allowed to work fewer hours, maybe that's what you want. About the definition of the household. Indeed, we can do better than that. Here we defined households according to the age of the head of household, and we obviously miss those elderly people who live with their children, for example, and are not the main supporters, because the definition of the Central Bureau of Statistics is the head of household is the one who is contributing most to household income. So that's kind of endogenous in a sense. So that's a point that we can take care of by looking deeper at the age composition of the households. And about earlier data, yeah, obviously the things were different in earlier periods. We were careful to keep the definitions right, because the definitions of the population that is included in the labor force surveys and income surveys changed over the years. And between 2001, from 2001, we know for sure it's the same population. Before that, we have to make all kind of adjustments. So it's possible to do that, but we haven't done that yet. And about the definition of the per capita income, then we didn't normalize it. Obviously, we have, for example, if you have one-person household or two-persons households, that's going to make a difference, especially because you may think of an older household of 2 people that maybe just one of them is working and the other one affords not to work, and so the income per capita will be much lower than you'll find it for a single person. Well, could be, because we know that there is a positive correlation between the employment of husband and wife. So it could be the opposite, but that's something that we haven't looked at yet. And thank you for all the comments.